We're all looking forward to Sunday when we will celebrate the giving of the Torah at Sinai. The truth is that Shabbos, the 5th of Sivan, is also the anniversary of a very momentous event in Jewish history. On the 5th of Sivan, God offered the Torah to the Jewish people through Moshe Rabbeinu. No fire on the mountain, no sound of the shofar, no mountain over their heads, just a calm, quiet, verbal offer. And the Jewish people answered with the eternal words, Na'aseh v'nishma, we will do and we will hear. And that response elicited from HaKadosh Baruch Hu and reaction, which the Talmud records, Migila Labanai, Sod Zeh Shamalachim Mishtamshim Bo, who revealed to my children this secret that the angels make use of? Because there's a verse that describes the angels, a verse in Tehillim, Gibori Koach Osei Dvoro Lishmoa B'Kol Dvoro, great of strength, doers of his word, to hear the voice of his word, putting doing before hearing. HaKadosh Baruch Hu expresses astonishment, kiviyachol, and joy that the Jewish people could express themselves with words that are natural to malachim, to angels, but apparently not natural to human beings. So this formula, 2 words, Na'aseh v'nishma, must contain essential yesodos, foundations of how the Jewish people and the Torah relate to one another. I would like to look at some of the meanings that this formula contains. This is only scratching the surface. That could be said about any piece of Torah, but here especially. And try to elicit some of the preconditions that we should try to achieve for ourselves in preparation for Kabbalas HaTorah on Shabbos, on Sunday. And I'd like to do this through the eyes of a new student to Ohr Sameach, Harvey, who is exploring, as so many are. He comes into the yeshiva, and the rabbi is talking about this subject. And he says, our ancestors proclaimed Na'aseh v'nishma, we will do and we will hear. And then the rabbi says, of course, doing before hearing is a problematic conception. How can you do what you have not heard? And although there are answers to that question, the rabbi says it'll be easier to start by understanding the word nishma to mean understand. The word nishma in Hebrew, even in biblical Hebrew, does mean to understand. When the brothers come to Egypt and they're confronting Joseph, the viceroy, not knowing who he is, they speak to one another openly in Hebrew because lo yadu ki shomea Yosef ki amelitz ben osam. They didn't know that Joseph understood them because Joseph used an interpreter to communicate from Egyptian to Hebrew, and they didn't know that he understood them. So the word shomea in Hebrew can mean legitimately to understand, and the rabbi suggests that Na'aseh v'nishma should first be confronted as we will do, and we will understand. And the rabbi says the Jewish people gave God a blank check, a commitment to do prior to understanding. They're not going to demand their own grasp of the reasons, the mechanisms, the outcome, the purpose, before they commit themselves to do. Well, Harvey is upset. And Harvey responds, what do you mean? You're going to do before you analyze, before you think it through, before you understand it? Isn't that irresponsible? Isn't that irrational? Don't intelligent, educated people consider a proposition and analyze its consequences and its basis and its fundamentals before they commit themselves? Why are you proud of taking such an irresponsible and irrational position? The rabbi says to Harvey, let's consider some of the things that people do in everyday life. Maybe you have experienced them as well. You go to your doctor for your annual checkup, And he says, I have discovered that you have such and such a condition, and there is a cure for it. I'm giving you a prescription. Go to the pharmacy, take this medicine for 2 months, and it'll go away. Do you, Harvey, take off 6 months to study physiology and study pharmacology so that you will know for yourself exactly what your condition is and exactly in what way this medicine will affect you? Or do you take it on the recommendation of your doctor? And imagine, Harvey, that you're running a business and you're interested in the dynamics of making money, and you have to sign a contract with a collaborator. Do you learn the legal basis of the contract to understand what its implications are, or do you hire a lawyer? Of course you hire a lawyer, because you're running the business. You haven't got the time, and usually you don't have the interest, to take off 6 months to study the law. You need to sign the contract and get on with running the business. And imagine, Harvey, that you are on a university campus. It's the first week of the semester, and you're trying to decide what courses to take. So you drop in casually on lectures of various subjects to see what draws your interest. You enter a classroom, and you hear the professor say the following words. This semester, we are going to study infinities. Different infinities of different sizes. Smaller and larger infinities. What would your reaction be to that statement, Harvey? How would you feel about the thought of infinities of different sizes? Wouldn't you feel that's a bit odd? Maybe paradoxical? Absurd? Nonsensical? Do they pay this guy to say those words? Maybe we should check his credentials. Probably you wouldn't say that. Probably you would say that if this fellow is employed by the university, he has a PhD in what's called transfinite mathematics, one of the things I used to teach for a living at Hopkins, that probably there's some meaning to it, even though, as I hear the words, they make no sense. So, Harvey, isn't it true that you are willing to use and defer to expert opinion in your everyday life without having your own personal understanding? And Harvey has to agree that that's so. Well, says the rabbi to Harvey, we have a Torah. This Torah was given to us by the creator of the universe. He certainly has as much authority as your doctor, your lawyer, or the professor of transfinite mathematics. You can't push it with Harvey. You can't say more. You can only say as much. God should have as much as these professionals. And we have our own experts who have studied God's revelation and know it exquisitely, and they tell us that this is what it means and this is how it applies. Why shouldn't we also rely upon those experts? Is what we are doing in pledging that we shall do before we have our own individual understanding, is that any more irrational or irresponsible than trusting the human experts that everyone uses? And Harvey has to agree that the trusting is certainly appropriate. But now Harvey has another problem. Then you are celebrating robotic performance. The picture I get now is there's this gigantic body of information which you cannot understand, and there are these experts who have mastered it, and they tell you what to do, and you just follow rules. Doesn't that make you into a permanent child? A permanent incompetent? Do you just follow orders without any understanding of your own? At this point, the rabbi reminds Harvey that the motto we are considering has 2 words, na'aseh v'nishma. We are committed to do prior to understanding, but we're also committed to understanding. We are indeed commanded to understand. We are commanded to invest in Jewish education, to understand the reasons for the commandments, the reasons for everything that we are told to do, to the greatest of our ability. And there is a gigantic literature. The Sefer HaChinuch, Book of Education, goes through all 613 commandments and gives reasons for all of them. And in addition to that, many of the commentators throughout the generations, to the present day, elaborate on reasons for the commandments. So we are required to invest in that education so as to increase our understanding. Acting before understanding is acceptable, appropriate, and a minimal performance. But then we are challenged and required to enrich our performance to the extent that our abilities give us the capacity to do so. Why is that? Why is it important to invest in understanding? Why isn't it enough just to be faithful, just to be responsible, dutiful? God told me to do this and I'm doing it. One reason is because HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants the service of the whole person. He wants the service of the person with all of the abilities that he invested in the person. I have a healthy body, so I serve him with my body. I have what in Israel is called a decent bank account. Here I think it would be regarded as surely deficient. And I have to serve him with my money. I have to serve him with my knowledge and education. I have to serve him with my ability to communicate. I also have to serve him with my mind. The mind has to be online. It can't be that I serve him with everything else, and my mind is off in another dimension. Everything has to be brought into concert in serving the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, even the mind. And indeed, it goes a little deeper. The way you understand what you are doing, the way it involves your basic concepts and your basic values and commitments, changes the quality of the action. A human being's action is not a motion of his limbs, a motion of his body. A human being's action is an expression of his thoughts, his feelings, his values, and his will. When you plumb those depths, you get an entirely different picture of what the action consists of. Imagine two children, both dedicated to their parents, both self-sacrificing, both dutiful, both committed, both there for the parents. One does it out of responsibility. My parents gave me so much, I owe them so much. They participated with the HaKadosh Baruch Hu in bringing me into the world. I owe it to the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I owe it. And I pay my debts. And I do it with a smile. Yes, it's difficult to get up at 2 in the morning. Sometimes my parents need it. But I conquer the irritation. I overcome it. And I get up and I do it for them with a smile. The second son says, my parents have invested in me so much love, so much care, so much identification that I love them. When the call comes at 2:30 in the morning, it's not irritating. On the contrary, it's a privilege to get up to serve them. Now, both will arrive at 2:35 at the parents' home. Both will carry out the service with the same smile, but the inner meaning of the service is entirely different. One out of duty and one out of love. And I think we all appreciate that if it's done out of love, it has a much richer performance. So it is vis-a-vis HaKadosh Baruch Hu also, that serving out of duty or responsibility cannot compare to serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu out of love. So the rabbi tells Harvey, the investment in understanding deepens the quality of the action, and it's a crucial element, but not a precondition. Harvey gets it. And he says, so I understand you don't require understanding as a precondition, but you use it to deepen the action. And now the rabbi says, yes, but then there's another element. And that is sometimes you have to do in order to understand. Na'aseh v'nishma, we will do, and through doing we'll come to understand. As it is in life generally, there are many things you can't understand until you do them. You can read books about swimming, and you can watch videos about swimming, and listen to lectures about swimming. If you never get into the water, you're not going to understand what swimming is. The same thing is true with many aspects of Torah living. About 45 years ago, I met a young woman who was a student in a college in the Boston area. She was not religious. No one at her college was religious. Somehow she got hold of Diane Grunfeld's book, The Sabbath, which is an introduction still in print today. A wonderful, wonderful introduction to Shabbos, which goes to the Lamites Malachos, all the things you're prohibited to do. She told me, years later, that when she read the book, her reaction was horror. You can't open a letter or write a letter. You can't take a telephone call or make a telephone call. You can't take a shower. You can't cook your breakfast. Go outside, empty your pockets. Don't take anything in your hands. She said, I'm sure it feels like, when am I going to violate the next law? When will I perform the next infraction? It must be a neurotic, obsessive-compulsive kind of horrible experience. It took her months to get up her courage to keep her first Shabbos, and this was totally negative. No Shabbos meals, no zmiros, no davening, no divrei Torah. Just don't do malachos. But she got up the courage, and she did it, and she reported that the experience was the opposite of what she anticipated. Instead of feeling that I can't, she felt I don't have to. She realized that she lived a fractured existence 45 years ago. We'll come to today in a moment. She lived a fractured existence that her ability to focus her attention was interrupted regularly in such a way that she had no time to focus in a leisurely and concentrated way on the things that really mattered to her, on the things that she really cared about and would want to spend time focusing on. In the days of the Musar yeshivas in Europe, one of the great Musar exponents used to open his mail only on Motzei Shabbos. He said, I'm engaged in Torah learning during the week. I don't want my concentration to be disturbed. I answer my mail, I open my mail on Motzei Shabbos. Okay. Most of us have devices in our pockets that ping. And they ping every 2 minutes, or 4 minutes, or 7 minutes, or 12 minutes. Got another input. Can you not answer it? When do you turn your phone off? I know people who, when they wake up in the morning, they grab their phone and answer their emails. That's the first thing they do. Nikolvasser comes later. And there's plenty of time to do that. I didn't get out of bed yet. I didn't go to Alaramis yet. But I got an email, an SMS. Somebody wrote to me. So, I understand now that they have waterproof phones. You can take them into the shower with you. Take them swimming with you. God forbid you should miss a communication. We live fractured existences. Now, you people, most of you, I assume, keep Shabbos. That being the case, you know what it is to escape that. You may very well be aware there's a new expression in the Jewish world, Chatzi Shabbat. That means I keep Shabbos except for SMS. And I send SMSs and receive SMSs on Shabbos. These people are addicted. And they're addicted to something which is breaking their psychological backbone. Because if you can't muster the focus to concentrate on something that's important to you, you're always demanded to respond to an external connection. Your psychological backbone is being broken. So you need to do this to understand it. When we lived in Baltimore, we had 2 children from Columbia, Maryland, which in those days was a new city, 2 Jewish children, completely non-religious homes. When they went home, one of the children said to the parents, I discovered something very important. I can live for 24 hours without television. That was a discovery. I can live for 24 hours without television. We have to tell people it's possible to live for 24 hours without the ping. Also, there is such a thing. At any rate, doing is a precondition often for understanding. And this, I think, impugns many Jewish studies programs at universities where you have books and you have lectures and you have discussions and seminars and no field trips. There are field trips in psychology, there are field trips in sociology and anthropology. There ought to be field trips in Jewish studies programs also, because you can't understand Torah unless you live it. That's the third element in Na'aseh V'Nishma. Well, these discussions with Harvey have taken a couple of months, and by now Harvey is Chaim. And Chaim still has questions, though as you'll see, Chaim's questions are on a different level of sophistication and understanding. Chaim now says, you know that verse you quoted to me from the book of Psalms? You call it Tehillim? There's a grammatical oddity in that verse. You describe the angels as doers of his word, to hear the voice of his word. Doers is a noun. To hear is a verb. Why is it shift from a noun to a verb? It could easily have been expressed as 2 nouns, doers and hearers. It could have been expressed as 2 verbs, to do and to hear. Why is it doers to hear? Well, when the rabbi hears Chaim ask this question, he's overjoyed, because that question was asked by the Slonim Rebbe in the Siva Sholem in his Ma'amorim on Shavuos. So he congratulates Chaim on this wonderful question, and he says to him, Listen to what the Slonim Rebbe explains. A noun describes what you are. A verb describes what you do. A noun can describe your essence. A verb just describes an activity. And a malach, an angel, is a doer, an agent by his very creation. He's created to do. By the way, the correct translation of malach is agent, like from the word malacha. It's not messenger, it doesn't have to carry messengers to any place. He's an agent. As shaliach is an agent, so malach also means agent. He's created as an agent. That's why a malach cannot rebel against his tzivui. To rebel would mean to cease to exist. He'd be contradicting his very essence. Now, a malach as a doer, since that's his essence, that's how he listens. He comes to listen because it's my essence to do. It's my essence to carry out. So of course I want to listen. So he's a doer and then to hear. Now, said the Slonim Rebbe, our job in preparing for Shavuos is to make ourselves into doers. And to hear what HaKadosh Baruch Hu has to tell us as doers. We're not created that way. We're created with free will. We have the capacity to rebel. It's tragic, it's self-destructive, but we have the capacity to rebel. We need to use our free will to turn ourselves essentially into doers of His word. And in that way to come to hear. And that's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu was so astonished and overjoyed at our expression, because the Malachim know this, because they're created as doers. A human being is not created as a doer. To grasp that you are capable of making yourself into a doer, like the Mesilas Yesharim says in the last parak, that a human being can become an angel walking in this world. He can become so by making himself so, by self-creativity, and in that way come to prepare yourself to hear. And now nishma means to hear. It doesn't have to mean to understand. And the rabbi goes on to give examples. On Shavuos, we're going to read about Ruth. The story of Ruth is one of the most inspiring stories in the entire Torah. What does she say when Naomi tries to convince her to go back to her old life? She was a Moabite princess. And she ends up an impoverished Jew, gleaning the leftovers in the fields with the lowest of the low. Ruth answers her, Elasher telchi elech, where you go I shall go. Basher talini yalin, where you sleep I shall sleep. Amei chami, your people is my people, say Chazal. She says to her, your people lives by 613 commandments. I accept them all upon myself. Elokayach elokoi, you serve only one God and no other. I too commit myself to serve no other God. Basher tamusi amus, where you die I shall die. V'game kaver, I'll be buried there. Hamavis yafrid beini uvenech, just death will separate me from you. Ruth is telling Naomi, this is what I am. I am an exponent of what you believe in, what you're committed to, and that is the people of Israel with its 630 commandments and with its God. That's what I am. Moshe Rabbeinu, Chazal tell us, Shechina medaberes b'toch grono. The voice, the presence of God spoke out of Moses' throat. There was no interface. There was no substance to Moses. He was wholly a vehicle for what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to communicate. That's why Torah ultimately can only come from Moshe Rabbeinu, no other prophet. Because he made himself into a doer with no interface of his own. And we see this in the heroic actions of people in Jewish history. I'll take one from ancient Jewish history and one from modern Jewish history. Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen, grandson of Aaron. According to many Meforshim, Zohar Kadosh, Kadosh Baruch Hu made Aaron into the high priest. He made his 4 children into priests. And he made all their future generations into priests. Future generations. At that point in time, Pinchas was already born. Pinchas was already in the world. Now imagine, put yourself in Pinchas's place. My grandfather's the high priest. My father and uncles are all priests. All their future, all my cousins are going to be priests. And I'm left out. I'm the only one excluded. I have the black X on my forehead. Why? What did I do? What didn't I do? Why am I excluded? No explanation. You're just out. Now there's a public challenge to HaKadosh Baruch Hu's honor. Who is going to be the one to stand up and defend HaKadosh Baruch Hu's honor at risk of his own life? It's Pinchas. He, the one who's excluded, who has the black mark on his forehead, who's told, you're not going to be a priest, he's the one to stand up and avenge Hashem's honor. That's what it means to be a doer. My only question is, what can I do for HaKadosh Baruch Hu? So he doesn't want me to be a priest, so I won't be a priest. But what can I do? In my position, what contribution can I make? We have a modern-day example of such a person. Simcha Wasserman was invited to Los Angeles to open a kollel there, and he was promised he would have no financial responsibilities. He came, he worked on it, the backer backed out, and he had to raise money, and it didn't go. At a certain point, Rebbe Wasserman said, look, I'll go back to Detroit, that's where they were from. I'll go back to my own job, I'll raise money, I'll send it to you. You stay here and try to make it work. And they were separated for a number of months. After a number of months, somebody called up his Rebbetzin and said, look, it's not working. It's not working. Maybe it wasn't meant to work. And she said, no, we can't give up. We have no children. The Wassermans never had any children. Who could go to Los Angeles? If you have children and there's no chinuch there for the children, a young person could not go, and he could not set up a new institution. We have no children, so we can go. Stay and make it work. And it did work. And Rav Mendel Weinbach, one of the heads of Ohr Sameach, was there in Los Angeles when she came out to rejoin him. It was Pesach. Now, you all know what a terrible tragedy and challenge infertility is. You know what it means for both parents, and especially a woman, not to have children. A person can be crushed by that. A person can become bitter through that. A person can feel, God has rejected me, God doesn't care about me, God doesn't want me. What did she say? She said, if I don't have children, what can I do for HaKadosh Baruch Hu that other people can't do? Because I don't have children. She looked at it as an opportunity to do something rather than to become bitter and rejected. This is what it means to become a doer of God's will. Okay, says Chaim, I hear the point, but that leaves me out. I'm not a Moses, and I'm not a Pinchas ben Elazar and Aaron Cohen, and I can't live up to the standards of Rebbe Wasserman, a Rus. These are exalted people. If that's what it means to succeed in receiving the Torah, then I'm left out. And here the rabbi answers him with a crucial understanding. Each one uses his or her own potential. And that's all that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants from a person. Avram Avinu, says the Rambam, worshipped idols. Avram Avinu offered sacrifices to idols with his own hands. The Rambam says Avram Avinu came to HaKadosh Baruch Hu when he was 48. Another text says 40. I know the Midrash says 3. The Kesef Mishnah talks about how to reconcile them. The Rambam says Avram Avinu worshipped idols, offered sacrifices to idols with his own hands. Yitzchak and Yaakov were born b'kedusha. They were born with holiness, with an understanding of the mitzvos. Is Avram Avinu less than Yitzchak and Yaakov? Not at all. Avram Avinu had to make that transition. That was his contribution, to go from worshipping idols to understanding HaKadosh Baruch Hu, being willing to sacrifice his life for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yitzchak and Yaakov had different challenges. Each person faces the challenge that HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts in his path, and that's his contribution. And no one should feel that if the level of performance is less, that it means HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves me any less. Indeed, the famous early Hasidic exponent, Rabbi Zusha, said famously, when I come to Shemayim after my life is over, and they ask me, Zusha, why didn't you do what Moshe Rabbeinu did? I'll have an easy answer. You didn't give me Moshe Rabbeinu's soul. You didn't give me his opportunities. But when they'll ask me, Zusha, why weren't you Zusha? Why didn't you do what you could do? Then I'll have no answer. The Rambam writes that because we all have free will, every one of us could be as big a tzaddik as Moshe Rabbeinu. Rebbe Chana Wasserman writes, if I, Rebbe Chana Wasserman, would serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with all my strength, for 1,000 years I would not come up to Moshe Rabbeinu's ankles. So what does the Rambam mean? Says Rebbe Chanan, he means that I would be able to serve him with all of my strength, just as Moshe Rabbeinu served him with all of his strength. Of course, the results aren't going to be the same. Our strengths aren't the same. But then I'll be as big a tzaddik as Moshe Rabbeinu. I'll sit next to Moshe Rabbeinu in Olam Haba because I did everything that I can do. So, the rabbi says to Chaim, don't worry. It's personalized. It's individualized. There's a ladder, as my Rebbe, the Boston Rebbe Zatzal, told us many times. There's a ladder of achievement from 0 to 100. Someone gets on at 84 and climbs to 94, feels exalted. He's only 6 steps below the top. Someone is put on at 29, climbs to 39, feels 39? I can't see the top. It's lost in the clouds. Each one climbed 10 rungs. All that matters is how many rungs you climb. Not where you were put on the ladder. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose for you. And therefore your performance is as precious to HaKadosh Baruch Hu as someone who is higher on the ladder because HaKadosh Baruch Hu put him there. Well, time goes by and Chaim studies. And now he comes up with a question all his own, a question which isn't even echoed in the sources so far as I know, and he has the following. The motto that you are explaining to us, Na'aseh v'nishma, we will do and we will hear or understand, says Chaim, strikes me as a bit odd. Let's imagine a group of people, and there's a speaker who's trying to persuade the group to undertake a certain joint group action. The speaker makes his pitch, and then he says, I'd like to hear from you what you think. Go around the room, and each one of you tell me how you react to my proposal. Calls on the first person. The first person says, your proposal is absolutely wonderful. We will do it. What do you think the reaction of the other people is going to be? Pretend it's a Jewish group. I think you can anticipate. They're going to say, speak for yourself? What do you mean we will do it? Who are you to speak for us? You tell him that you agree and let us, each one of us, express our own opinions. How did the Jewish people say, we will do and we will perform, we will hear, we will understand? How could they speak in the we? There are times when a number of people join together and they feel a kind of unity. You can have 5 people in a joint action, and the feeling is it's one being with 10 arms and 10 legs and 5 heads, 10 eyes, because of the unity that's experienced. Sometimes this happens in sports. You have a well-knit sports team. Each one feels the movements of the other, and they coordinate for a joint action. You have this in folk dance. I'm not very well coordinated, but from time to time when I was a kid, 100 years ago, I did engage in folk dancing. You're going around in a circle, holding hands, and then at a certain point you jump. Everybody's in the air at the same moment. Your muscles feel the muscles of all the other people. You feel the strength of the ring that you're part of. It's an exquisite feeling. Or when you play music, you play chamber music, there's no conductor. How do you keep time with everybody else? I played chamber music for many years. You feel everybody else. You hear the breathing. You see the motions of their bodies. And you feel like one entity with 5 voices. There's a time when you have that feeling of exquisite unity. When Chazal described Klal Yisrael at Mount Sinai as Ki'ish echad b'lev echad, like one person with one heart, this is one fragment of what they're talking about. Each one could feel the disposition of the other. When Moshe Rabbeinu put it to them that the Creator has a Torah that He wants to offer to us, each one could feel the joint agreement, the joint acceptance, and that's how they could all spontaneously say, Na'aseh v'nishma, we will do, and we will hear and understand. And this signifies a very important point which I have only time to just briefly mention, and that is that the Torah was given to a nation. The Torah was not given to individuals, it was given to a nation. Yes, Chazal talk about 600,000 brisos, but the 600,000 brisos were the commitments of individuals as a stage of a nation, as to become an Am, as it says in the beginning of Parshas Nitzavim. The fact that Kadosh Baruch Hu gave the Torah to the Am explains many questions. Often I'm asked in the yeshiva, so my great-great-great to the nth power grandparent, 3,300 plus years ago, said yes to Kadosh Baruch Hu. Why does that bind me? If my father worked for General Motors for 40 years, do I have to work for General Motors? I'm an independent person and I'll choose my own profession. Why does their commitment bind me? Answer. There are individuals, and then there are corporate individuals. If General Motors signs a contract with Zaire to supply trucks for 25 years at a certain price, and 17 years later, all the directors have changed and the shares of stock have been sold so that all the owners are different, General Motors can't say, the contract doesn't bind us. We weren't there when it was signed, not the CEO and not the president and not the shareholders. No, it's the same corporation. A corporation retains its identity even with a change in its membership. Similarly with a national treaty. Imagine the United States has a treaty with Mexico signed in 1908. Can an American citizen today say, it doesn't bind me? I didn't vote for the representatives that signed it. I didn't vote for or against the president who negotiated it. No, it's a commitment of the nation, and today is the same American nation as it was in 1908. Today is the same Jewish nation as it was 3,300 plus years ago, when the nation made a commitment to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That being the case, we're all bound by it. And this is the basis of a halacha that many people know. The Gemara in Rosh Hashanah discusses it. It's Friday night. Make Kiddush, and you've made hamotzi, and you're eating the soup, and singing Zviros. There's a knock on the door, and a stranger presents himself and says, I'm a Jew, and I need help because I didn't make Kiddush, and I don't have the facility to make Kiddush. Please make Kiddush for me. He says to the head of household, please make Kiddush for me. So the Gemara considers this question, and his first thought is, how can I make Kiddush again? I did that already. I could say the words, but it would just be play acting. When you have one person making Kiddush for another, the person making Kiddush is doing the mitzvah. Shomeach Ka'ona means that person listening also participates in the mitzvah that the person is doing, but I can't do the mitzvah, I've done it already. The Gemara says you can do it. You can do it. How? So Rashi says, because of Arvus. Every Jew is responsible for every other Jew. Okay, that's what Rashi says, but it's not self-explanatory. Yes, I have a responsibility for him. I'll pour him his own cup of wine. Doesn't know how to say the words? I'll get him a transliteration. I'll say the words and he can repeat after me. I'll translate the words and he can say them in English. How does Arvus, my responsibility for another Jew, get me over the legal barrier that I can't do the mitzvah because I've done the mitzvah already? Says the Ran, in explaining this Rashi, because when that Jew presents himself who has not made Kiddush, it reawakens my obligation of Kiddush. I am obligated again in Kiddush because he hasn't made Kiddush. It means that every mitzvah has in it an inherent social dimension. The mitzvah is addressed to the Am, to the people of Israel. Yes, I carry it out as best I can. Here's another opportunity to carry it out. And the Ritva there says because the Jewish nation is one body, one corporate body. And as everyone knows, you have an infection in your left hand, your right hand cannot be indifferent because there's a joint bloodstream which joins the whole body into one. So the mitzvos have an essential social dimension, public dimension, that's part of it's being given to the nation as a whole. And that's what's expressed by the people's words we will do and we will hear and understand. Let's give Chaim one last question. We know the famous midrash that HaKadosh Baruch Hu offered the Torah to the various nations of the world, and they said no. In particular, he offered it to the nation of Edom, and Edom said, Maksiv Bey, what's written in the Torah? HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, Lo sirtzach, no murder. And Edom said, please, we run empires. You don't run empires by treating people gently. You take care of people in ways that are sometimes less gentle. Don't talk to us about Lo Sirtzach. We're not prepared to handle that. He went to Yishmael and said, they said, Maksiv Bey, and Baruch Hu said, Lo signovu, don't steal. You're talking to Arabs, perhaps? Don't steal? Give me a break, Stealing is just off the record. It's not something that can be discussed. Fine. So they refused. The obvious question presents itself. Lo Sirtzach and Lo Signovu are part of the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach. The non-Jewish world is already obligated to keep these mitzvahs. How could that be their objection against taking the Torah? If they said we don't want to keep Shabbos because we like scuba diving on Saturdays, and this is going to cut into our scuba diving, we can understand that. Right now, Saturday is neutral. It's open. They can do as they please. They accept the Torah. They can't do it anymore. But here, the Torah is telling them that they can't do things that they already can't do. How can that be the objection against receiving the Torah? The rabbi answers as follows. You're right. You're right. They're already obligated in these commandments. But the nature of the obligation isn't the same. Imagine a king running a kingdom, and he promulgates a law against littering. You drop a candy wrapper and anything other than a trash receptacle, $100 fine. So a citizen on the street drops a candy wrapper, and the police will come over and say, look, you violated the law, $100 fine. Now imagine the king in the throne room, sitting on the throne, and his son, standing there in the throne room, drops a candy wrapper on the floor. He's broken the same law, but the crime is not the same crime. When the son of the king, standing in front of his father in the throne room, breaks the father's law, it's not the same crime. So they said, yes, we know we're obligated not to murder and not to steal, and we are definitely planning to murder and to steal, and we are going to definitely violate those laws. We are only citizens in the street. But to receive the Torah means to be invited to become children of the king in the palace. And that's going to transform the nature of the crime in a way that we can't accept. We're not prepared to accept that. Okay, but then what do we learn from that? This is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu did for us. When he gave us the Torah, he invited us to become his children, to live in the palace with him. Banim atem l'Hashem Elokechem. You are children to Hashem, your God. This is the preciousness of the Torah that we celebrate on Shavuos. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu invited us into the palace to live with him as his children. Let's take Chaim with us. Let's take Chaim with us to our Nasa v'Nishma on Shabbos and our Kabbalah Torah on Sunday. We will do, even if we don't understand, if the sages of the generation tell us that something's necessary, we will give them the credibility that we give lahavdil to other experts, and we should give them even more. The quality of expertise is not comparable. I could talk to you for an hour about that, and I taught university for 10 years. The quality of expertise is not comparable. We will give them our full allegiance, even if we do not yet understand the reasons for what they say. But we will pledge ourselves to study, to understand each one of us to his ability, so that we can enrich our performance of the mitzvos to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with all the abilities that he gave us. We will train ourselves to be doers. We will train ourselves to have a faithful will, a will that's faithful to what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants from us, each with his or her own unique potential. We will join together with Klal Yisrael. We will not separate ourselves. We will not consider ourselves separate. We will not ignore standards that are set for the people of Israel in the attempt to falsely set ourselves outside the boundaries that the people has to accept jointly. And we will strive to be worthy of being children of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, living with him in the palace and doing his will. And if we do that, then we can hope to hear and feel the words that HaKadosh Baruch Hu spoke 3,300 plus years ago. Ani amarti Elokim atem uvenei elyon kolchem. I said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, that you are like angels. You are all children of the one on high. We should all have a lichtig in Kabbalah Torah filled with light.